I don't very much like what I eat in a day videos, typically, which is precisely why I make them. I hope I can be that little light on the internet to show you that you don't need to intermittent fast, you don't need to avoid fruit or refined sugars, you can eat freely. Today, I wanted to show you what I eat in a day now, almost 10 years recovered from an eating disorder, versus what I ate back in the day of my eating disorder. To get the nice kind of light, I'm literally standing here squatting. Let's get to the video. As an aside, yes, I am wearing some funky ass clothes. I usually wear very lousy clothes, but when I do wear nice clothes, I always get asked where they're from. I actually ordered a whole bunch of stuff from Burlook. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it is fantastic and I am in love. They do have some really nice pieces, and these are the things that I just acquired. These are all size S and XS. I'll put all the details in the description below as well in case you're interested. But to be honest, they were slightly tight, so I probably would up the size for myself personally. They do have a whole measure yourself kind of system on their website, which I thought I'd used correctly, but the pieces are stunning nevertheless. Anyway, you all know my asides, and it's time to get to the point of this video. Food, what I eat in a day, and how that has changed over the years. What I eat in a day has changed drastically from the time of my eating disorder, to the time of my recovery, to what I eat now. And what has changed even more is my outlook on food. The rules, the rigidity versus the freedom I have around food. While I ate a lot more at the time of my recovery compared to when I had the eating disorder, but even due to those periods of extreme hunger, even compared to now, at the time of my recovery, there was definitely periods where I still fell into that trap of listening to those food rules, those rigid food routines, and the orthorexia. So what I want to compare now is what I was eating when I was fully committed, fully challenging the eating disorder, and I still heard those voices, but I was actively trying to go against them. That is what I want to compare to what I eat nowadays, starting with breakfast. At the time of my recovery, I would wake up early. I would be hungry. I was living at home and we always had homemade bread, and this was the thing of my dreams. My body craved bread, and a lot of it. Yes, it did at that time still scare me that they were so big, so much bigger than the supermarket bread, and especially after I stupidly decided to weigh a slice of each for comparison. But I was genuinely and intentionally trying to challenge this at the time. So I had 2 slices of bread, usually with either cheese or peanut butter or chocolate. Not long after that, I would sit down with the rest of my family and have a bowl of porridge and fruit, or yogurt and fruit, always with added nuts and nut butters and dried fruits, which, you bet, still sort of scared me, but which I absolutely loved as well. I still love them now, but I don't feel drawn to them in that same way as I did back then. Nowadays, I think my breakfast is pretty similar, in the sense that I do still like my bowls, but I no longer have the 2-part breakfasts. I tend to just eat when I wake up and eat a solid amount, and that then keeps me going for a good amount of time. I think the fact that this meal is more satiating to me now is because, 1, the actual bowl is a bit more substantial, but also I focus more on protein, and well, I think the biggest factors are simply that I have now weight restored and I've got a better body fat percentage, which definitely helps with regulating those hunger and fullness cues. Back in the day, there was no such thing as regular hunger fullness cues. During my recovery, an hour or 2 after breakfast, there was always some kind of snack. And I don't really remember what they were now, but I think it will have differed when I was at school versus when I had to stay home from school, and it was often convenience items, so a packet of cookies or chocolate, or a muesli bar, or just some more bread. Nowadays, I may have crackers with peanut butter or vegan cheese, or even just some chocolates or dates and nuts. Some days, I'm just not hungry, and that's okay too. Lunch is often leftovers, or if there are no leftovers, I might just make myself an easy sandwich or some toasties, and that hasn't really changed. That was always that way. Though, back in the day, I had a big bread craving. So if I say I had a couple of slices of bread, yes, that same fat homemade bread, would usually be 6 slices, maybe 7 or 8, with lots of tuna mayo, or hummus, or peanut butter, or cheese, or whatever we had in. I could eat bread for days and I did not feel satiated, which, to be honest, is not that crazy when you think about it. My body had been starved for a long time and it was now asking for more food. Feeling properly satiated often only happened by the time I was uncomfortably physically full. But I think I had to go through that as well in order for my body to figure out what fullness actually meant. It wasn't something I'd really experienced in a long time, and not something that would completely normalize until I reached a healthy weight and until my hormones had fully balanced out as well. Anyway, at that time in my recovery, I did eat fruit and veg, but my cravings did go through phases, and that was okay. If right now you don't crave any fruit and veg at all, embrace it. There will be a time when that does re-regulate itself and where it does find its own balance. Right now, things may feel a bit out of balance, but that's part of the process. It was for me. During my recovery, food was both terrifying as well as super exciting, dare I say, orgasmic. My meals, I don't know, they were a whole event. I wanted everything to be perfect, down to the timing, to the temperature, to the food choices. Nowadays, however, I would say my food experience is actually a whole lot better. I don't build it up in my head. I don't have quite that same orgasmic sensation when I eat, but food tastes good, and when it doesn't, I can move on. While I'm eating, I can socialize. The whole experience just feels a whole lot more balanced to me, and I love that. Also, food is no longer something that my entire day is built around. Back in the day, I had my set meal times and then my routine around that. Nowadays, I have my clients, my other commitments, my routine, and my meals just sort of slot in between those other things, which have grown to take up more space in my life and in my mind. Whereas back in the day, my afternoon snack would take place at exactly 3 p.m. It now might be 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, or some days it might not be there at all. That doesn't happen often. I do usually need a snack to get me through the day, but it happens, and it's fine. Let me know if you've noticed any of these same changes in yourself, in your own journey as well. My afternoon snack used to be its own little mini meal in the afternoon. It would often be pastries or cakes or other fairly filling but challenging foods. Nowadays, I still love pastries. I love going for cake with friends or going out for donuts or whatever else. I'm also perfectly okay just comfort eating or eating foods because I crave them, not because they're going to fill me up. And I don't necessarily need to be filled up. Oftentimes I have a snack not because I'm hungry, but because it's something to do. It gives me comfort. It's fun. And that's okay too. The eating disorder would not like to hear those words, but that is okay too. I'm in a place now where food doesn't need to fit this range of criteria. It doesn't need to be calorically sufficient or satiating enough, or it doesn't need to have the perfect macro split. If it does, you know, great. Having balanced meals and snacks, I'm all for it. But if it doesn't, occasionally, that's not going to kill me. It'll make me a happier and freer person on the whole. And I'd rather live this life than the life I had back then. At the time of my recovery, dinner would be pasta or potatoes. It'd usually be some kind of meat and veg, typical Belgian style, with lots of sauce. I craved a lot of sauce, but sauce also allowed me to get in the calories that I needed, the energy that I needed, without making me feel uncomfortably full. So for me, that was just an easy hack. And you know what? Nowadays, I still love my sauces. If my curry isn't swimming in sauce, that's a disappointment. Some things never change, and they don't have to. There's definitely some things that have changed over time. That is normal. Preferences change, needs change. But there's also a lot of things that have stayed exactly the same. So yeah, my dinners themselves look pretty similar to what they did back then in terms of the kind of things I went for, the kind of portions I had, with the one main difference being that I no longer eat dairy or meat. That is a decision that I made after my recovery and something I wasn't able to, or definitely wouldn't have been able to do during my recovery, but something that suits my life perfectly well now. At the time of my recovery, my dessert was usually my go-to banana, yogurt, walnut, honey combination. It's a bomb combo, but I don't really have it that much anymore now. Probably overdid it. But yeah, I would also have other things like more bread with peanut butter or ice cream. I had a lot of ice cream, or literally anything else that you can think of. I did have a lot of variety, and I did so intentionally. Nowadays, I still like a lot of the same things, but I don't have as much of a sweet tooth as I did back then, so I am probably more inclined to go for more savoury options, crisps and hummus, crackers and peanut butter, or a lot of the time just leftovers from dinner. And sometimes we eat so late or so much that I don't want anything else to keep me satisfied. Also, there was a period in my recovery where I would wake up every single night to make myself bread and peanut butter, and that is not something I have had since. Though I will say, if I go to bed really, really late due to a party or whatever else, something I wouldn't have allowed myself back in the day, because I was scared I'd get hungry again. Well, if that happens, I eat, regardless of the time. It could be 8 in the evening, it could be 1 at night. I don't care. If my body's asking for fuel, I have learned to listen to that. I think in the evening, those are the times at which I noticed the biggest differences throughout my recovery, because there were periods where I wouldn't want to eat too close to bed. There were periods where I was intentionally trying to challenge that. There were periods where it was evening time that I would freak out over not having eaten enough during the day and would go very much overboard with 3, 4, 5 different snacks. But ultimately found my balance. It's through going through those kind of things that I learned what hunger and fullness were, what my body needed throughout the day, what I enjoyed, what I didn't, what worked for me. The whole recovery journey was a bit of a trial and error process, and viewing it as such really took the pressure off. When I did something wrong, it no longer felt like failure. It felt like part of that journey, because part of that journey was making mistakes and learning from them. And that is how I got to where I am today. Free around food, free around my choices, and no longer so regimented with everything I do and put in my mouth. For some people, I think what they eat in recovery looks a lot different from what they eat after recovery, either due to still being very strict in their rules, or the opposite. going all in and going through periods of extreme hunger. For me, there have definitely been a lot of changes over time, but on the whole, I still like a lot of the same foods. I have never had to intentionally restrict my intake after reaching a healthy weight. There's still so many things that are exactly the way they were as in my recovery. And that feels freaking great. No, I no longer intentionally drink lots of glasses of milk during the day to reach my goals. But I may spontaneously go out for lattes or a cappuccino, or I may make myself a hot chocolate or have a kombucha. No, I no longer intentionally eat pastries every single day. But yes, I often go out for cake, or I have ice cream on a hot summer day. And I can now be pretty spontaneous with these things precisely because of that daily challenging that I did in the past. And no, my snacks, my meals, etc., it's no longer as regimented as it was. And I can now go through the day picking at things the entire freaking day without freaking out. And there's seldom a meal that I cook where I don't eat half the ingredients by the time the meal is prepared. For me, that is perfect. That is how I like to live my life. Preferences do change, but I'm still very much the same old me. I know quite a few of you have been here since the early days, so if there's any major changes that you have noticed in me, or if there's any changes that you've noticed in yourself, definitely let me know in the comments, because I think this is a super interesting topic. On the whole, as I said, my food hasn't changed that much, but my life in general has changed massively. By taking that focus, that pressure off of food, my world has opened up to a whole lot more. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got a lot of value out of it. If you have any questions to me or any of your own insights that you'd like to share, don't hold back. Also, while you're down there, obviously hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and I'll see you next week for another video.